For background information, I'm a female on a volunteer fire department, and this happened a few years ago when I was 20. During our drills at my former department, our bay doors are open, so people have been known to walk by, talk to us, ask us questions, or just look at the trucks. One evening, this 23-year-old dude strolls by, a fellow firefighter from another town, which isn't uncommon. Firemen stop by other departments all the time when in town. He made his rounds and was talking to my chief, my captain, the young guys, and he made his way over to me and started chatting me up. He was a nice guy and good-looking enough, so we exchanged Snapchats. And it didn't take long to figure out what a psycho he was. After a week of talking, he messaged me saying, "So, how come you didn't swipe right?" Confused, I asked him what he meant, and this unfolded. He told me all of this in an attempt to impress me with how devoted he was. He found me on a dating app, used my picture from the dating app to find my Facebook, since in my one photo, I was wearing a uniform that had my last name. That was definitely my bad. He then used my profile picture to find out what fire department I was on by looking closely at the fire truck in the background. He told me he walked by my department almost every day to see when we drilled and to spot me. And as he's telling me this, I'm confused as heck, and he goes, "I'm having a pretty rough day. If I can come over?" Cue to him telling me he's on his way. He used my Snapchat location to find my work and house. Don't worry, my location and everything is now off. When he came to my house, he brought a love letter and gifts. He said he was sorry and confused and just really want things to work out. And I told him that he needed to leave and never speak to me again, to which he obliged by leaving, saying if that would make me happy. He made maybe 3 or 4 new Snapchat and Facebook profiles in an attempt to add me back. At one point, he got clever and he made his Snapchat username Chris Smith 1990, which made me go, "Hey, it's my friend Chris Smith." Lo and behold, it was not Chris Smith. Once I realized it wasn't my friend, but instead the psycho, he asked what he could do to make it up. I texted him, "Get lost, go set yourself on fire." I then got a video of him walking in the woods, and then he set himself on fire. He flickered a lighter over his hand, and I thought, yeah, okay. And then his entire hand and arm lit up, followed by screaming, and it cut out. I started to freak out, thinking, well, fuck, and immediately got a photo of the hairs on his knuckles burnt off and his burnt shirt. He was okay and coated his arm in something flammable, but something that wouldn't actually damage him. Well, blocked again. He fucked off after coming to my house again, and I had a gun in my hand and told him to stop or the cops would be involved. But to be fair, it wasn't loaded. I didn't know how to use it and was planning on swinging the thing if it really got bad. So, crazy stalker who set himself ablaze, let's not meet. So I, a 20-year-old female, lived in a shady-as-hell apartment complex in an otherwise rich suburban area for 3 years, and have lots of stories that could fit on here. But this one is about a neighbor I'll call Bob. A little backstory. Me, 18 at that time, and my then 16-year-old sister used to babysit all the neighborhood kids. These kids considered us as their friends, and it got to where they seemed to have a radar of when me and my sister went outside. They'd come out and talk to us, and we'd let them ride our skateboards and such in the parking lot. The kids were ages 8 to 13. So one day, we were outside with them and we were joined by a stranger. He stood between us and our car, towering over us. He introduced himself and asked to sign a petition he made up. We did, just being friendly. Then he asked us how old we were. I thought maybe he was a fellow teenager that looked older, or that he was just awkward. So I told him I was 18. And the very next question was if I wanted to go out with him, in front of my mom and the other kid's mom. I awkwardly declined, but he continued talking about how he thought me and my sister were in middle school. Also, he was 28. Eventually, he wandered away to ask someone else to sign his petition. A few days later, he knocked at our door after asking a neighbor for the address. He had a bag of what he said was chicken and wanted us to go eat with him at the park. We declined because we both had schoolwork to do. He walked away and he was mumbling about how antisocial everyone was. Later, we look at our window and see him playing baseball with 2 girls. He kept physically moving their arms to different positions even though they shrugged away from him. Next day, one of the kids ran up to me. I'll call her Maddie and she's 8. She got a new pair of Heelys and wanted help with them. I was holding her and guiding her along when Bob appears and says he can help better. Maddie says no, but he insists. He pushed me aside and reaches for Maddie, holding her tightly around the upper chest area. Her grandma was there too and flips out, and he wanders away. The next day, Maddie is freaking out, saying Bob was just sitting on her porch when she left for school that morning. Her parents found out, and as they walked outside, he let himself in, and they said he went to their kitchen to make orange chicken. We later found out another neighbor had a similar story. Another time, we were helping a family move, and they have a 2-year-old son. The garages are in a triangle shape to the road, almost a roundabout. There's a flat patch of grass behind them. Well, here comes Bob to help us. He criticized the way we packed things and didn't help until our neighbor politely asked him to leave. Well, he left the garage. But instead of leaving, he asked the 2-year-old if he wanted to play. The kid said no, and it made him mad. He picked up the kid to play, and the kid slapped him. He asked the kid if he wanted to go behind the garages to play ball. The kid's mom doesn't notice, so I go with them and guide the kid to his mom. The climax of this story is when me and my sister went on a walk with our 17-year-old friend and her other friend. Maddie found us and wanted to come along, so we are starting out when Bob comes out. He sees our friend and asks how old she is and how much she weighs because she's so skinny. He asks where we were going. My friend tells him we were going for ice cream on a girls' trip. We didn't ask her to say that. And he's like, "Aw, man," and stomps away. We continue our walk, but halfway through, we have a weird feeling. I look behind us, and Bob is running toward us. He yells at us for hiding from him, while also telling Maddie how pretty she is. An older neighbor sees this and asks him what's going on. He tells the man we're being mean and he needs to go write a song about us. He leaves, but when we see him sitting at the park, well, he saw us and again comes running. We stop and he asks which one of us is over 18. Maddie's dad is here at this point and tells him we aren't interested in him. He explodes, telling the dad to fuck himself and that he's so rude, calling me a bitch. Maddie is crying, and the neighbor who saw us before came to check on us since he saw Bob running. Bob goes inside, muttering to himself. For weeks we don't see him. A single dad and his 5-year-old daughter moved in, and we are introducing ourselves to them. My mom kind of tips him off that there's someone in their building who is a little off, especially around Maddie. The dad says he's seen someone like that giving kids candy at the pool when the kids look uncomfortable. Well, here comes Bob, as if on cue. He immediately tells the girl, in front of her dad, that she looks like a movie star and that she's so pretty. He asks to play with her, but the dad says no, and they go inside. Turns out, they're next-door neighbors. We still didn't see him much, but other neighbors were telling us stories about him. There was a woman who was alone most of the day with her 2 kids under 5, who told us as he watches her when she goes to and from her car. Also, Maddie's parents continue to see him watching her. Then one day, we're again babysitting, and here he comes. Only this time, he is swinging nunchucks. Maddie screams and hides in our car, and Bob strolls over with his nunchucks and starts talking to us all casual. Then, his head cranes to look into the car, and he says, "Where's Maddie?" We told him she wasn't here, and he walked away. By then, most of the kids were afraid to go outside when they saw him. He had a habit of wandering around the complex. We could tell by his height and lanky gait. A few times we'd see Bob with his dad. Those times, he neither even glanced at us. Then one day, he just stopped showing up. We'd see his dad and brother come in and out all the time, but never him. We only saw him again a year later, and it was only for one day near Christmas, and then he disappeared again. So I don't know what happened to him, but it was just one of our weird experiences with neighbors in the 3 years living there. Maybe I'll post more stories of a chick that tried to kill her parents because she was a witch, or the old man that bites children's necks, if you'd want to hear them. Many moons ago, when I was 15 or 16, I worked at Dairy Queen. The store was located on a street where taxis were always back and forth, so I never had to call a cab. I would just wait for one to drive by and hail it. My parents didn't drive, so we had a deal where they paid for half the cab ride. Whenever I worked the closing shift, midnight or later, depending on how long it took us to clean up, my coworker, who lived right next door to the store, would wait with me on the picnic tables until I was able to hail a cab. Late one night, while sitting on the picnic table, I noticed a car drive by us. It seemed to slow down, but kept going. I don't know what made me notice it, but I did. Anyway, a taxi comes by, and I hail it. My coworker, assuming I'm in the cab, goes home. I told the driver where I wanted to go, but he said he wasn't going that way, so I went back to the picnic tables by myself. I wasn't too concerned because, like I said, taxis would be up and down the street all the time. While I'm waiting, the car that I had clocked earlier comes around the corner and pulls into the parking lot. Then, the driver gets out of the car and starts walking toward me. To this day, I don't know why I didn't just run to my friend's house. He said,
"It's kind of cold tonight, isn't it?"
It wasn't, but I just agreed. Then he said,
"It's kind of lonely too."
Cue inner freaking. He went on to say,
"God told me to stop and talk to you."
At this point, I saw a taxi pull into the parking lot across the street. I didn't say anything, but just started walking toward that cab. The creep said,
"I can give you a ride."
And I said, "Oh, no, that's okay." Then he said,
"I love you."
I sprinted for that cab, probably broke world records. I swear, jumped in the back of the cab and asked the driver if he was working and could he drive me home. He knew I was freaked out and got me home safely. I was so afraid the creep would follow. After that, I called the cab every single time that I worked late and waited inside the store until the cab arrived. After I got my license and a car, when I worked late with other girls who had to wait for a ride, I waited with them inside the store or gave them a ride home myself. And if they argued, I told them my story. So, creepy Dairy Queen guy, I don't love you, and let's not meet. This happened to me around 2 weeks ago, and I can't still forget about it. I'm aware of the fact that it's not that chilling for others. But hey, I still have goosebumps when I think about it. Let me start with a little backstory. I'm a female, a really small type, 166 centimeters and less than 50 kilograms. And I was home alone at that time on distance learning. I live with my parents in our family home. Usually, my mom is home with me because she's a stay-at-home mom, and my dad works on the other side of our hometown. We are currently renovating our bath and toilet, so my dad agreed with some workers like a plumber, a bricklayer, yeah, you name it. He never uses help of companies. He only pays solo workers. This is very important information. And by the way, English is not my first language, so I'm sorry for some mistakes that I will probably make. This particular day, I was home alone, having some online class and playing video games, along with taking notes from class. I'm a good student, so nothing to worry about. It was around 10 a.m., I think. Suddenly, I saw a man outside our fence, just looking around with a red car parked outside our house too. It was parked in a way that shows people that who parked it wants to go to our house. He found the bell and rang it, so I automatically go in my pajamas to open the door. I felt safe because my dad told me a few days prior to this that he's expecting a plumber, so I thought that this is the plumber. I opened the door and said my hello, and he politely answered and told me that he was a plumber for my dad, and told me my dad's last name too, which is very, very rare in my country. And he told me that he came because of the renovations of our bath and toilet. Now, this information is still pretty much secret. We don't really talk to much people, and from what I know, nobody outside my partner, my parents, and me knew about the renovation. He was just too convincing. Also, he was acting pretty normal, just some worker asking for entry to our house to look at pipes. He gave me an excuse on why he was there in the time that my dad was at work. He said his doctor's appointment was switched, so he was free for this day. I let him in. I unlocked the gate, led him into the house, and guided him to our bath. He looked at it, had some plumber-like questions about pipes, where this one is coming from, what this is, what that is, and I tried my best to answer all of them. Then, I led him into our cellar, where some of our other pipes were too, and he was just looking at pipes and talking about them, still mentioning information that's only known to me, my parents, and my partner. He made some small talk, but nothing really unusual. Actually asked if I had online schooling because he heard my teacher's voice in my room. But no weird questions like, "Are you home alone?" or something like that. So obviously, no red alarm was set in my head. He then told me he will call my dad and talk about the new date for him to go there and work on the pipes. The first thing which was weird about him was the fact that he hadn't got my dad's mobile number in his phone. I had to give him that number, but I was trying not to overthink it. Then he said goodbye, and he went in the direction of his car. I decided to call my mom that the plumber was here just to give her some heads up, but my mom went silent in the phone and asked me about his looks and car. I answered, "Oh, this guy's in his 40s with a red big car with work clothes, brown hair, and..." But then she answered me, "Lock in, both the gate and front doors. That's not our plumber, and don't go outside." I was actually pretty confused and told her that he knew the details, even Dad's surname. She told me that she doesn't know who that guy was because our plumber was an older man with a big van and right now was in the hospital because of his cancer treatment. He phoned the day before about it. I casually glanced through the window only to see that the man in his red car was still parked outside of our house, just sitting there. I told my mom I locked both the door and gate after him so she doesn't worry. But I lied. I didn't want to upset her. Me, a little and very much weak girl in pajamas, sitting in an unlocked house with a guy twice my age, weight, and height outside my house who I didn't know. But he knew that I was home alone, only on call with my teacher and classmates, and he knew the layout of my house. After some time, my mom rushed home only to find me safe and sound, just a little bit confused. After her, my dad came home. I told him about this plumber, and he confirmed that this is not the plumber who he paid. He stated again that this plumber does not have any colleague or coworker, and he's working solo, and he didn't recognize that man either. Nobody saw him. Our neighbors is like living in the spirit of my garden, my business, and I don't care about the outside world. We quickly ruled out possibility of a coworker and just some weird mixing up names. As I said, our surname, especially my dad's, is very, very rare, and he's the only one with this special surname in our whole region at least. Well, not including my grandpa who lives in the next town. Possibility of my partner telling someone is also 0% since he's really introverted, so even some weird twisted prank on his side was impossible. I don't know who I let into my home, but I know he was not the plumber, and it gives me chills to this day because he could have easily harmed me or even take me away without any help for hours or even witnesses. And I was just lucky that he didn't do anything. Hi, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you want to send me a story to read, feel free to do so. My email is in the description of the video. And if you want to follow me on my social media, just to get updates or maybe to talk, the links and info for my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram accounts are also in the description. And finally, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And turn that bell on to be notified for upcoming surprises. And remember, your fear feeds me.